Today I really wanted to discuss breastfeeding. I feel like it's important to discuss this prenatally before baby's here, because if we don't talk about it now, then all of a sudden we have this baby that we need to feed, and we're not really sure, we haven't had the conversation about it. Breastfeeding is a natural thing, and for many people, it comes naturally, but that doesn't mean that there's never any struggles. So I really want to discuss how we can set up a good breastfeeding relationship and have really good outcomes. So to start, it's really important to have early and frequent breastfeedings. This can help create the best outcomes for a breastfeeding experience for both you and for your baby. And in those first few days, milk production is actually controlled by your hormones. This allows you some time to get into the swing of things and learn how to get baby to get a good latch, allows your breast time to adapt, and really have a good breastfeeding relationship established before your mature milk comes in. Early on, it's that amazing yellowish colostrum that's in really small amounts, but it's power-packed with nutrition, immune support, and high in protein. Once your milk does come in, breast milk production is then driven by supply and demand, meaning that you will only make what baby takes out or what is removed from your breast. Baby is the best means of getting milk out of the breast, and pumps cannot effectively remove milk from the breast or stimulate those feel-good and love hormones that we get when we feed and connect with our babies. Breastfeeding is a great way to bond with our babies, and we get to know each other really well during those times. Now, baby's part in breastfeeding. Babies are wise, and while they can't talk, they can tell us what they need. Early feeding cues that we can watch for to know that babies wish to feed include when they're rooting with their mouths open and turning their head side to side, searching for their breast. So and they'll just be looking for that breast. They might have tightly closed fists when they're hungry, and they may try to suck on their hands. Crying is the last sign that they're hungry, and it's really important to catch hunger cues prior to crying, as it can be really difficult to settle and feed them once they reach that point. I highly recommend not using supplementation or pacifiers because they can interfere with the establishment of breast milk production and the relationship between the mother and the baby. Breastfeeding works by supply and demand after those first few days. When your milk comes in, it's important to follow baby's cues and to feed them whenever they're hungry so you can establish a good milk supply that's tailor fit just for your baby. For breastfeeding to be successful, the more important and most impactful difference can be made simply by breastfeeding and only by feeding directly from the breast. As time goes on, the use of pacifiers can be okay, just when you're driving in the car and can't immediately meet your child's needs. But at least for those first few weeks when you're home after the baby's born, I really caution against the use of supplemental feeds and pacifiers. What I do recommend is exclusive breastfeeding, and what that means is only feeding baby breast milk, at least for the first 6 months of life, if not longer. It's recommended to feed baby up to 1 to 2 years old, and some references even say later than that. So exclusive breastfeeding means they never have any other substance or formula. No goat's milk, no cow's milk, no nothing, just breast milk. So when we're feeding, one of the biggest things that is important is a good latch and proper breast milk removal. So what is a good latch? How do we know it's a good latch? So when we're trying to get a good latch, and these don't look exactly like a breast or baby, but they're adequate, we want to make sure first that baby's head is in line with their back. So they aren't having to try to turn their head and feed, as that makes breastfeeding more difficult. Their head should be slightly free to move, but supported. When they come to breast, we don't want their head tucked down. We want them in a slight sniffing position. Okay, and when we bring baby to the breast, we want the nipple to line up with the nose. We don't want to try to get it right in their mouth because sometimes that makes them not have a good, effective latch. When we bring their nose to the nipple, it makes them open their mouth wide. And we want to wait for them to have their mouth wide. And we want that nipple to come into contact with the palate of the baby's mouth, not the tongue specifically. We want it to go deep into the palate. We want baby's mouth to surround not just the nipple, but also the areola, the dark color around the breast. Now, if you have a larger areola, that doesn't mean that they need to fully cover the entire areola. We just want them to have a sufficient amount of the breast in their mouth because they don't suck directly from the nipple. They really have to massage that breast to get milk to come. Okay? Now, when I say that baby's head and back should be in line, they should also be facing you. Not always just tummy to tummy directly, like they have to be flat tummy to tummy, but facing you. And depending on how your breasts hang, how the nipple hangs, if your breast, that the nipple is higher on the breast, you want to bring baby to that part of your breast, right? We don't want to try to bring them below, and we're going to have to fiddle. And if your breast is low and your nipple is low, you want to bring baby low. And wherever the nipple is on your breast, that is where you want to bring baby to, okay? Now, to get babies to open wide, not always just when we bring them to breast are they just going to open up. Sometimes we have to tease their cheek, and that gets that rooting reflex started, or we can even tease their mouth or nose with the nipple and get them to open their mouth. And when we bring baby to breast, when we're holding the breast, we don't want to manipulate the breast too much because that can interfere with the feed as well and milk flow. So we don't want to clamp down on our breast and try to just shove it in baby's mouth. I know we see that in some movies and some references, and that's not optimal. If we have a larger breast especially, we may need to support that breast a little bit, or low hanging. We might want to support a little bit for us to be comfortable too. But we shouldn't be squishing the breast, just grasping. This is what's called a C hold. That can be helpful too. So another thing when we bring baby to breast, we want that nose to nipple sniffing position. Mouth opens wide. They get nipple and part of the areola. Their lips are flared out. Oftentimes we see that tongue flared out as well. Okay, and we want to be able to see the upper lip more than the lower lip. We want that lower jaw tucked into the breast, okay? Now, some things that we might see that show us that we don't have the best latch would be like chomping. We don't want baby to chomp. We want a nice kind of breast massage going on, not chomping. And we don't want to hear ticking or clicking sounds like when baby does feed. Usually, babies will have some quick sucks that get the letdown to happen when your milk begins to flow from the milk ejection reflex. And that reflex feels different for everyone. Some people don't feel it as much, but the people who do feel it often, it feels like a soft pulling or a tingling sensation as your breast kind of squeezes that milk out. Once that occurs, we'll hear and see some slow nutritive sucks followed by swallowing. And when baby swallows, you can see their ears move and their temples move and hear gulping. Latches might be sore at the beginning of feeds in the early days, but they shouldn't persist through the whole feed. It should only be towards the beginning of the feed, and that soreness shouldn't persist more than a few days. There's a couple of different positions to hold baby, and by no means are these the only positions you can hold a baby. But there's the very common to see with older babies, cradle hold. So you're supporting baby with the arm of the breast that it's by, and you're just resting baby's head in the crook of your elbow. Now, more recommended for smaller babies is the cross cradle hold. So you're actually holding them with your other hand away from the breast that you're feeding from. And this allows you to have this hand by that breast free if you do need to manipulate the breast a little bit or give baby a little extra help getting a good latch. Now, if we turn baby this way and actually tuck their body under our arm by the breast that we're feeding them from, this is called the football hold. And again, that allows you to have a whole free hand to help baby with the latch. Now, for some people, side lying is more difficult until breastfeeding is really established or baby's a little bit older, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it. And for some people in the early days, it's actually really helpful because you can rest and feed baby. So laying in bed, lying on your side, baby's lying on their side, sometimes with their back down. But again, it's best to have baby's back in line with their head. So you're just lying in bed. Often people will have one arm tucked up here, one kind of by baby's head, and just have baby feeding on the breast while lying down. Another position would be mom's reclining and baby's on tummy, and they can just feed right from there. And you can support their head just like this. Now, some breastfeeding problems that can occur, most common would be sore nipples. It's normal to have some soreness of the nipple in the early days, like I said, at the beginning of feeds, but lessens as the feed progresses and as the days pass. Cracking or excessive nipple pain can be caused by poor latch. So if there's pain after the initial latch, you can pop baby off and try again. Now when we take baby off the breast, we do not want to just pull them off. That hurts. We want to just kind of hook in the mouth, break suction, and then nicely pull baby off. And then we can try the latch again right away. You can also put lanolin or a little bit of self-expressed milk on the breast. You can wear a supportive sports bra or nursing bra, nothing with like underwire or super tight. And also sometimes allow breast to get some air now and then between feeds. Nipple shields aren't recommended as they can really interfere with feeds unless they're deemed necessary by a midwife or a lactation consultant. Engorgement. It's really common to have some engorgement the day or two after milk comes in. This can be lessened by feeding on demand and even using cabbage leaves. They're cooling and they help to pull out extra interstitial fluids in the breast. Engorgement that persists past that period can be caused by inefficient feeds that are often due to a poor latch. Ensuring that you feed on demand and attempt to get a good effective latch each time can help lessen engorgement. It's really not advised to pump or attempt to get extra milk when first establishing breastfeeding because this can cause oversupply and engorgement. Mastitis. Mastitis is caused by inflammation that may or may not come with an infection. This is caused by engorgement due to lack of effective milk removal. This causes inflammation in the breast as there's more pressure in the breast due to that milk remaining there. That milk then leaks into the surrounding breast tissue. You might see rashes or redness on the breast, sometimes in streaks or spoke lines. It might be warm to the touch and it might be painful. Some people get a fever with mastitis and feel like they have the flu. It's normal to have a slightly elevated temperature when your milk comes in, but that should resolve within 24 hours. In this case, mastitis is most common between 2 to 3 weeks postpartum. A mastitis infection is caused by bacterial invasion, and these act on the milk that's forced in the tissue, the surrounding breast tissue, due to that inflammation. Resolving mastitis involves getting milk flowing and feeding frequently, ensuring proper milk removal and a good latch. You can increase your fermented foods and probiotics that you're taking in the diet and avoid inflammatory foods to lessen that inflammation in the body. If there is an infection and no improvement, then antibiotics might be sought out. Talking about low milk supply, so there's perceived low milk supply and actual low milk supply. So it's common for moms to feel like they have a low milk supply throughout their breastfeeding journeys. One of the main reasons that I've seen is after engorgement fades and the breasts regulate and soften. Some mothers feel like this is due to low milk supply. In most cases, that isn't true. We're not meant to be engorged forever. As baby regulates our milk supply, we don't have extra, and that's all there is. If there's truly insufficient milk supply, then we can reestablish that by feeding frequently, on demand, and ensuring a proper latch. Skin-to-skin contact and building a relationship with baby can help too with establishing good milk supply. In some cases, our emotions can actually cause stasis of milk production and interfere with breastfeeding. So, if we have trauma from our birth or trauma in general, or we need more support, it's really important to talk to loved ones and friends and your midwife so that you can express those emotions and work through them and feel supported. Some drugs and smoking can interfere with milk supply as well as anemia. Making sure that you get lots of iron-rich foods, iron, meats, fish, eggs, leafy greens, that you're well nourished and hydrated, and getting adequate rest can help with milk supply. Now, our bodies are preferential to baby. Even if we're not eating enough and not drinking enough, we're going to still make milk. But making sure that we're well supported to breastfeed and can withstand the stress of breastfeeding is really important. One last thing that I wanted to mention about different situations that can happen with breastfeeding is DMER. Now, this is dysphoric milk ejection reflex. It's not common. This condition pertains to negative emotions, sadness, or even nausea that can be extremely strong when the milk ejection reflex is triggered. These feelings often fade after the ejection reflex passes. More research and light's being shed on this condition, and I feel it's worth mentioning if you ever feel this way so that I can assist you with this and still have a successful breastfeeding journey. Normal newborn weight loss and gain. It's normal for baby after the birth to lose some degree of weight. Often that's why I don't weigh them until the 5 to 7 day visit unless we have concerns. Healthy babies, even getting enough to eat, lose to 7 to 10% of their birth weight and usually gain it all back by 2 weeks old. After that first week, I do like to see babies gaining at least 1 ounce a day. Kind of to sum up our conversation, whatever works for you, you do it. If a different position than what I recommended works for you, do it. In those early days, I want you to give yourself grace. Don't worry about anything unnecessary and accept all the help that you can. Really just focusing on getting your strength and wellness back, getting good food and plenty of fluids in you, resting as much as you can, and just worrying about establishing breastfeeding. If you aren't sure when to feed baby, just offer the breast. Babies won't eat if they're not hungry. If they come off the breast and they're sleepy and content and their hands are relaxed and open, usually they're full and it's okay to end the feed. Don't take baby away from the breast while they're feeding unless it's only to quickly pop off and fix a poor latch. That can be really disrupting to the feed and can lead to a disgruntled baby. You're not going to spoil a baby by feeding them or holding them. Deepening your relationship with your child can only benefit both of you. One thing that I highly recommend is co-sleeping, specifically bed sharing, as it's in our nature to sleep with our young, and it's only going to benefit our breastfeeding relationship. And I highly recommend all of my clients to bed share or co-sleep, and we can talk about safe bed sharing as well if you desire. I have a handout too that kind of goes over all the information we talked about. I don't want you to ever be afraid to call if you have any questions or concerns or bring up things pertaining to breastfeeding that you want more information about or more help with. Of course, after baby's here, we're going to talk more about breastfeeding, and I'm going to help you establish a good breastfeeding relationship. I do also have a lactation consultant that I work with, so if there's ever anything that we feel we need extra insight or help with, I have her on standby as well.